So, we are in our Faithful Citizen curriculum, and last week we decided to watch the second half of the DVD on the environment or ecology, and then we'll discuss and then move on upon what kind of time we have. That's my recollection.
Can I make a comment about last week?
Go ahead, Mark.
Last week, there was something wrong. Everybody got off on the wrong track. I did too. And you sat there and reminded me of a doctor that I was talking to, and he was real quiet, and I just, some of the terms are my terms. He said, I was kind of wondering where you were coming from. He said, I thought I'd let you talk until you caught on.
Yeah.
And then you remind me, last week there, you sat there and you were kind of looking at us and you were, where are these people coming from? And you and your husband and everybody that talked that day, we were talking about something completely different. And you kind of let us go, and I don't know if you ever figured out what we were talking about. I can't tell you. I was just wondering if anybody else picked up on that. We kind of lost.
The conversation went that way, and I thought it was
good.
I liked it.
I did too. But you sat there and you were, and I could read your mind. Where did these come from?
Truth is, Marv, I'm so used to that happening.
Good. But it was good, but I was thinking about it later. And I don't think we went back to, you said we'd go back and do this again.
Yeah.
And that's not the answer, but maybe it is, maybe whatever it was that triggered that, maybe it'll trigger it again.
Well, we were talking about interconnectedness of environment and economy and values. And I thought, too, it was a pretty rich discussion, which is one reason why I was very pleased with the direction that we were running. And, sometimes the Holy Spirit agrees with where I think the conversation is going to go, and sometimes the Holy Spirit, Paul says in one passage, we had determined to go here, and the Holy Spirit said, no, you're going there. Well, I mean, that happens. And one of the things that I appreciated about our approach to adult education, and I think it's a little easier when it's us and not an outside speaker who's got 2 weeks or whatever, is that I'm not, and I think we are not, as interested in finishing a course or a conversation as we are in giving a conversation its due. And so, that we're 2 weeks off track right now, and it's not bothering me a bit. Because I think we've been doing good work in the time that we've been together. And so, did you want to say anything else about that?
No.
All right. Anybody else want to make a comment or share an insight about where we're at right now before we watch this DVD one more time? The reason why I wanted to watch this DVD one more time and then have opportunity to discuss it is that I found some of what these two gentlemen were saying very challenging. It is the norm to have great wealth and great poverty. Most of the world has spent life like that. And the rise of a middle class like us is a relatively recent phenomenon. And the fact that in our country today, the gap between the richest and the poorest is increasing, or the middle class shrinking, because among other things, the middle class that was helped by unions in various kinds of shops and industries or whatever, that's a shrinking class now. And so when we talked about, and when we talked in chapter, what's the book called, chapter 4, about global security, one of the things that intrigues me about this course is it's there's an emphasis on global that is certainly missing in our national conversation today, and it's not been a part of my thinking very much. And yet, the suggestion is, if this is God's world, what does it mean to be a citizen in this world, not just in this country or this state? So that's why I wanted to watch this particular part one more time, because I thought there's a lot there. So, Scott, let's do that. We'll watch 3B, and then we'll discuss it and then move on from there.
When it comes to justice in relation to our material world,
Can you hear that?
most of us are finding these days that we must expand our understanding of economics to include a so-called natural world, because that world is the world that we depend on every day for our existence. Doing justice to non-humans is one of those new agendas for us. Thomas Friedman, in a column in the New York Times recently, said, "We are now, as a world civilization, up against a wall. We are hitting the wall, which is the limitation on our ability to manage our affairs on the basis of more and more and more and more. We must find a way to do less and less and less.
Yes.
And we must find a way both to respect each other enough so that we don't exploit each other, so that some of us get rich while the other of us get poor. But that same rule applies to our environment. If we don't support that environment and its health, so to speak,
Yes.
we destroy ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
And I guess I'd like to ask you, how did we ever get into a fix in which we are in danger of fouling our own nest, and indeed creating an economy which is not supported very much longer? How did we get this way?
Well, I mean, you have to go into a deep history here. Most people have been very poor. Most societies in historical times have been divided into a tiny group of very rich people, 5%, 2%, and 80 or 90% of the people were really on the borderline of starvation. So poverty has been the norm. And nobody who's that poor wants to stay that way. And they've always had fantasies about kings and queens and princes who had everything they wanted. And because they would like to have that too. In all traditional societies, you have folk tales about kings and so on. And we have created a society which, though far from egalitarian, equality has not been fulfilled as a central concern, nonetheless has raised the level of poorest people more than most societies in history. Poverty is still present among us, and some of it is very grinding and very unjust. And at this point, I think we have to, and so my point is that the notion that if everybody gets more, if everybody can share in the wealth that traditional societies have had only for the aristocracy, that's a good thing. And let's say that's not a good thing. To pull people out of being on the verge of starvation is certainly a good thing.
The Bible does not celebrate poverty, does it?
No, and that's the other thing, though. The Bible does unjust poverty, but the Bible does celebrate another kind of poverty. Blessed are the poor, because they are closer to God. They do not worship mammon, because they don't have any mammon to worship. And and then in the monastic orders, the vow of poverty is part of what makes them leading a sacred, holy life. And this is true in other religions as well, certainly in Buddhism. So there is a good form of poverty, not grinding poverty and starvation, but a sense of limit, a sense that when we have what we need, we don't need more and more and more. And what I think Friedman is pointing to is that if we raise the standard of living of the whole world, let's say in the immediate future China and India, in the longer run future, the Middle East and Africa and so on, we would have a use of resources that would destroy the environment completely, and we would not have any life at all. We would, fouling our nest is almost too gentle a metaphor for what would happen. So we are now at the situation where, I mean, we used to talk in the 60s and so on about voluntary poverty. Voluntary poverty is still on the agenda. Being careful about the resources we use. Reducing those needs that we think are needs, but maybe we don't really need. If we are to share this planet with all human beings on it, and not just Americans living well while most of the world is starving, we all have to share together in some limitation on sheer material acquisitions.
There are two words that increasingly occur in lots of the discussions these days about economics and so-called prosperity. One is simplicity, the other is sufficiency. Is it possible that if we live more simply and with just sufficiency, rather than maximum wealth, we would in fact be happier?
Yes. Well, certainly we do know that while grinding poverty is a source of unhappiness, that if basic needs are met, beyond that, the more money you have doesn't make you happier. Money makes you happy if you're very poor.
And that's not just ethically mandatory. The research shows
social psychology finds this.
Right.
So that, but then we run up against the question of what is a sufficiency? Standards of the society have changed. Teenagers think they have to have their own cars. They have to have fancy audio systems. They have to have God knows what, compared to the days when you and I were growing up. And they think that's necessary for sufficiency. So we need to really think deeply what we really need, and whether a lot of the things that we now assume we really need.
I think about some of us have grandparents and parents too, who grew up in a pretty poor circumstance, but never thought of themselves as poor.
Yes.
Because they had enough to eat,
right.
And otherwise had a happy life.
Yes.
We mustn't celebrate poverty, as I've said, but neither should we celebrate wealth the way a mammon worshiper does.
Yes, I know, because there isn't enough there to for everyone to have that kind of extreme wealth.
Thoughts? Make sense? I'm struck by simplicity and sufficiency. What does that mean?
I don't like it.
Don't like it?
Simplicity, one that's got it wants you to go. So they give you the bare necessities and you're supposed to be happy, while they go to Florida and California and travel around the world, have their own boats and airplanes and everything, and you're supposed to be happy because you're got enough to eat, got your clothes, and that's it. No, and I don't buy it.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Yeah, that's all I look at.
I appreciate that honest response. One of the things that for me has been a growing edge is the understanding of self-sacrifice that is so central to being a disciple of Jesus Christ. And I am becoming more and more convinced that one of the problems and one of the things that is at the heart of our sinful nature is that I prefer when somebody else makes a sacrifice that benefits me, rather than I make a sacrifice that benefits somebody else. whose taxes should be raised? Somebody else's, right? Or whose inheritance should be taxed? The rich, right? Now I'm looking around, maybe one or two in this room would be rich.
Give him a spirit.
But, I mean, doesn't this gentleman here speak the truth? Huh? And so does Dan Erickson. But that's the struggle, isn't it? That's the struggle for us as individuals and for us as a people.
Yeah.
Jim, did you raise your hand, or were you going to say something?
I think we tend to see ourselves as middle class, after a certain point. We're all middle class, and we envy everybody above you, because that's human nature. Envy is part of one of the 7 deadly sins you're affected by.
And 2 commandments.
Yeah.
You shall not covet, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your point of view, where you're standing on that incline. And it's, I think human nature want more comfort, whether you need it or not. Have a cushion or a little more is always nicer.
Phyllis.
Well, because when they were speaking, it made it sound like they would prefer it to stay where we farmed with horses or oxen. They did it almost like they don't want anybody to excel to anything else, and that's just not. I mean, the way I look at it, that's just not the way to live. If you can better yourself and better other people, I think that's what we're supposed to do. I just can't see living like a pauper and saying, oh, I'm this, poor person here. I don't know.
There is a certain kind of nostalgia for a simpler day. But some of you can speak more readily to this. One of the things that I learned in the year that I spent in Barron, Wisconsin, which is a small dairy community, in the news lately because of the young woman who's been abducted or whatever.
And the singer.
Oh yeah, and the singer, that's right. One of the things that I learned was the 25 dairy farmers in that congregation were always worried about something, because there was so much in their life that they could not control, like the weather or the market, and so life on the farm might have some advantages, but it is not necessarily a simpler life. Am I right, Dan? I mean, it is, but it isn't, huh?
The tractor ruined rural economies.
Yeah, I know, I lived on a farm
do more work with
too,
fewer people, huh?
and we did work with horses at first, I can remember driving the horses.
Yeah, same here.
And yet, we didn't own the land, we were poor, but we managed to eat because we farmed.
Sure.
But to want to stay at that level, I don't know, I can't buy it.
I guess when I think of simplicity as far as what they were talking about, I read it a different way. I read it as, for example, we went to Minot this past weekend to visit Justin's sister and her family, and they just moved houses and they got a big new living room set. It looks really lovely in their living room, and it's really nice. And Justin and I, we're still, going strong on the living room set that we inherited with our house, which has got to be 25, 30 years old now. I hate it. It's ugly. It's disgusting. Thankfully, it absorbs spit up really well for the night. Because that floral pattern hides everything. But I look at their living room set and I think, oh, I want a new couch so badly. And to me, simplicity says, I don't need that new couch yet. This couch works really well. We're going to get another 5-10 years out of this couch. Justin's car, we're gonna drive that thing into the ground, we don't need a new car. That's to me where I see their simplicity coming in. I don't need to eat organic, whatever produce, you know, whatever we can afford and still feeds my family in a healthy way. That's good. That is enough. That's enough for me, and that is sort of what that simplicity speaks to in my world. We don't need the newest and the best and the brightest. I'm going on a phone that's old, was not the newest model, wasn't even like the second newest model when I got it, and that's enough. You know, to me, that's where the simplicity, I see that translating into my life, saying, that'd be awesome to have a new couch, and that would look how pretty in my living room. And it's not happening, and that's okay, because we have enough to sustain us right now.
In my own lifetime now, I think that this has been the best time that anybody could ever have. I come out of the 30s, that was horrible, but I was young. We were poor and I didn't know it, you know, you didn't know it then. But then as you got older, even at high school, and I was working, and then unions were very instrumental in getting the cost of living under control and getting people. And I'm thinking, my dad didn't even have a car to start, you know. And now we have 2 cars. We drove out to California 2 or 3 times. We went to Hawaii 2 or 3 times, Mexico. That's the kind of life that, and I think we deserved it. We both worked hard. We raised our kids the best we could, and that's living. That's progressing. I don't have 4 or 5 cars and place, you know, California and one out here, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to do things, you know, and I think we were able to do that in that lifetime. Now I'm kind of going the other way again. Our economy is booming, and yet people found out now that big shots, they hit it big enough for a while, and they took the employment and they got it down. Now they got a lot of orders again, they're going back up, but they're not hiring. They found out that they can work these people a little bit harder, and now they're getting more money, and we're going downhill. So we got some more work to do again.
Maybe one of the keys is the connection between these two. That it's not just a simple life or sufficient, but the connection between the two, and that one helps to focus the other, so that in your situation, a couch is a good example. In another situation, it might be something else, you know, and that, you know, those of us who drive our cars into the ground, I mean, it's a connection between those two, I think. On the other hand, I have 4 black shirts. I can only wear one at a time, you know, and I won't tell you how many blue shirts I have, because I like blue. Well, you know, how do I think about that? I mean, we all have those areas where, I don't need it, but more is better, you know. That, you know, maybe this yoking is a key thing. Corinne?
To me, it's, I don't know how to get our society off, you know, I'm just me. But I see these people where they have to have a big house. Every kid has his own room, his own bathroom, they have walk-in closets, they have this, and how many rooms can you be in at once? I mean, they walk into a room, well, this is the formal living room, but nobody ever sits here. It's like, how do we get society off thinking I don't know that we could.
We cancel HGTV.
Yeah. You know, it's nice when they take an older home and fix it up, but when they want to build something, that has things like this, and I think, you know, I started out without indoor plumbing or any electricity. And I can see that route too, where you don't want to stay there. But how much do you really have to have? I don't use my half-story attic. I don't use the basement except for laundry, and it's like, I don't need a lot of room. Why do I need a walk-in closet? I can put it all in one closet, and it's, just don't look at all my clothes that you see every other week. But it's just, I just don't understand where society got off on everybody has to have the biggest and the best and be way ahead.
Jim?
I read a story one time where I found a few here or there. The moral of the story was there are three types: sacred, profane, and self. And of the three, the latter is the truest and the strongest. We are born selfish, and we may not shed that forever. It's part of your makeup.
Sylvia?
I took a little bit of exception to voluntary poverty. I do not think that there's anybody that wants to be poor. However, we have created an environment that says, you need that cell phone, you need this, and you need that. Well, and we pass this down from generation to generation. But then I had a lady come through the food shelf last week. We probably had the best stocked food shelf that I have seen since I've been there. That woman walked through and she said, you do not have anything. Went through the whole food shelf. What am I going to feed my family? So, is that what we created? And then the lady behind her was saying, well, I don't need that. You know, I don't want to take 5 items because I don't need them. I won't use them. I want to leave them for somebody else. So, but have we created a world for that woman that says, well, boy, I can't take a thing that may be outdated because, of course, she's checking the date on it, too. But I don't think anybody voluntarily does that. Was this placed on her? Is this placed on us? I mean, we always want our kids to have more than we had. And we give it to them.
Did you have any caviar or champagne there?
Well, she asked, but I said, well, that was last week.
I will say, if you had put me in front of fresh produce at age 25, I wouldn't have had a clue what to do with it.
Well, this lady wasn't
Okay.
25.
If it didn't have a box,
box,
I did not know how to make it because I was never taught. You know, we were the boxed food gourmets at my house.
But there were a lot of boxed food for her to pick out too, and it was just very distressing for me because I couldn't say anything to her. I couldn't say, what do you mean there's nothing here? I mean, we never have fruit. We never have canned fruit. We had the whole top shelf was canned fruit. What do you mean you can't find anything? Feed your family. And so I see so much poverty between my 2 days at the food shelf, the community market, and what I know we put in the back. They don't want to be there.
And just to try and clarify about voluntary poverty, I think that the connection made in the DVD is about when I think they mentioned monks and nuns or priests who take a vow of voluntary poverty. I don't think he was saying that people want, that poor people want to be poor. But I think that was when he talked about people who choose to live at a lower standard of living than what they might otherwise, that would be how voluntary poverty, I mean, Especially this time of year, I think about how we could all have more of something or some things if we weren't filling an offering envelope every week or every month. And how it would seem that life could be easier if we didn't do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that life would be better or richer, but when you think about what else that money could be used for if it stayed home, that's the kind of thing that I think, in a sense, we're choosing to do with less because we believe there is something to be said for returning thanks for the blessings we've been given, and that's a choice, a voluntary, lowering according to some definitions of our standard of living. I think that's what the reference was to, not that poor people choose to be poor. That doesn't speak to the woman that you're talking about. But.
I'm looking at getting a new TV, a bigger one, and this has made me think, oh, do I need that or not?
Well, it should have been at the Target at 6 a.m.
Oh, forget that.
Friday.
No.
You got a big one for next to nothing.
That's all right, they can have it.
That feeds it, doesn't it? It's Black Friday, as if somebody can tell you or anybody else what to do with the day after Thanksgiving. That we are convinced that life will be better if we have this, that, or the other. I don't know what kind of phone I have. I know what I can do with it, but I resent every attempt that somebody has to make me want to do more with it than I do. And that's a small part of life, Who's driving this? And who's riding the waves instead of standing where we think we should be? Michelle?
We've just had some beautiful examples here of people stepping into their own choices. Where do they spend their volunteer time? Do they think, do they even consider the size of their TV, or do they just automatically go? Do they think about the couch that we're using and reusing? I can remember thinking about children going through the drive-thru and getting these coffees that are so awful for them. They're hyping them on caffeine and sugar, and they're expensive. And I thought, where did our children start to think that this was the way they should be? Well, guess what? From me, who bought, where did our daughter get off on looking at big houses? I wonder, So it's our choices, and this is also, I think, where our church makes a huge statement. Where do we offer opportunities for people to get involved in the community, to live their faith, and to think about these choices, about where we spend our time and our money and how we live our lives.
Okay.
Something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think it was, I don't know if it's the current political climate or just needing a change in my life, but Lena and I joined this group. It's called the Sunshine Gang. And a friend of mine, my old boss from Valley Fair, started this about 10 years ago. It's a group that does random acts of kindness, and they focus on one big one each month. And I thought, I need a change. I need to be able to give something really tangibly valuable. We have to give offering, but I don't have time to volunteer at the community market. I can't get to the food shelf. I need some way to see the good that I'm doing. And so Lena and I joined. When you talk about the examples that we set for our kids, so every month Lena and I go and we do some sort of service with this group, and and believe me, despite our best efforts, Lena has a heart of gold. But she, the last weekend we went to this library down in Bloomington and we tied blankets for people. And she for 3-4 hours tied blankets and had a ball doing it. And I think we talked afterward how good that makes her feel to give back. And we also spent a lot of money that Justin was not super pleased with on fleece for these blankets. But that voluntary, I'm giving up my time and I'm giving up a little bit of money, and that's not going to go to the credit card this month, so that someone else can maybe have just, it doesn't make that much of a difference to me, but it might make a huge difference to someone else. And being able to teach that to Lena, God, I hope that sticks.
Oh, it will. There's no way that that's not making an impression on that child.
I sure hope so. I think she just really likes going to see my friend Nikki right now.
Whatever.
Whatever gets her there. I think you said last week, Luther said that God doesn't care how we get there. God just cares that we're there.
Right.
I'll take it. But I really like that idea of limiting our self and our wealth to benefit others. And I don't know that we need to set a cap on it, or, you know, but just in our house thinking, you know, do I need that something extra? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you need to be a monk. I'm not saying you shouldn't go get a new TV. Go get a new TV. It's okay to go get a new TV. It's okay to get a new couch. But it's nice to be able to ask myself, would this make me happy? And if it doesn't, why am I doing it? Or, you know, do I feel like this is life-giving? And if it's not, why am I doing it?
You mentioned that couch. We have 4 cats in our household right now. And when they like to get claws into the sofa, I think, no, I'm glad that I don't have to cringe too much. I, you know, holler at them and stuff, but...
Anything else? Jim?
When I was in the military, everybody looked the same. Everybody's clothes were the same. There was some lack of tension in that.
That's interesting.
You all looked the same. You may not have liked it, but...
At the same time, you were in a cross-section of America.
I don't think
Because
that's-
everybody was from somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. Some of them might go farther than America. A couple times I've been in the solar system.
No, you weren't there in the 1980s. That was worse.
730.
What? Go ahead, Sylvia.
I was just going to think back on the poverty and whether it's voluntary because you're a monk, or if people are saying it's voluntary because you don't want to work. And working with the people that I do, and being connected with other people that don't understand the poverty, and these people are not necessarily there because they want to, will say, well, why don't they go out and get a job? Why don't they move on, et cetera, et cetera. Not understanding it fully and basically passing judgment on these people. And usually I come into this, and aren't you glad you're not the judge? Because it's, you know, I mean, you just see so much of it.
Let me say one thing about that too. It seems to me that it is very key for me to actually know the person who's asking for help, or to have some sense of what's going on. And that makes it hard for me to judge sometimes. Now, sometimes it solidifies my judgment. But you know, I think about the difference for many of us in our congregation when we know who is asking for help and what kind of help is needed. You know, even if it's one step removed, like the students at John Glenn, who we feel like we know a little bit about, or the families that will have their hopes for Christmas on the table in the narthex, you know, because it's to know that the reason why the bills aren't paid is because mom has cancer makes a big difference. And I think that kind of speaks to a bygone day when the social worker might actually have a manageable load, or the parole officer might be able to meet all of the parolees, or, I mean, whatever the situation is, you know, rather than, you know, the budget says we've got one person for 1,000 or something. I mean, it's a hopeless situation in terms of knowing and being able to make personal decisions.
Well, and it does, with the Christmas list coming now, and I know what I'm getting from John Glenn, I have to clean them tremendously to take off the computers, the Xboxes and all that, because again, this is the world we've created for our kids. This is what the kid in this locker has, and this is what I want.
Right.
I don't want to take that food home. I'm not going to, because he's got an Xbox.
Right.
But yeah, these kids are not going to get what they have on their list, which is, you know, what does that tell them? I don't know what that's saying, but I can't put those lists out there and say, well.
Right.
You know, in all these situations here, individual as they are, there's still a high and a low, and we gotta be able to stop, like you say, stop and ask ourselves, you know, if we just go one way off, one way or the other, that's how it is. Let's stop and say, you know, do I really need this, or that's good. You know, I truly believe that.
Phyllis, and then we'll move on.
I was just reminding me of this one lady who needed help. It was like Christmas time, and I had given her a basket, clothes basket, full of laundry detergent, soap, you know, all kinds of normal things people need. And I had also bought her a little Christmas tree, and I was setting that up. And when she got the basket, her kids came over and were just digging through, and at first it bothered me, and then I thought, you know, when you give a gift, you give it. Doesn't say how it's supposed to be used.
It's not yours anymore.
Right, and that, then I felt better. I thought, maybe they do need it. I don't know, but, you know, at least it's something I had to tell myself that, no, once you give it away, that's theirs to do with what they want.
Well, Justin and I have talked about this a lot when it comes to giving money to panhandlers, and he and I very differ. Like, he is all the way over there and I am all the way over here. And it's something that I have to think about a lot. If I give money, once it leaves my hand, it's not mine anymore. Whatever you do with it is what you do with it. And it's very humbling, but actually really freeing, that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to switch gears now and look at the first part of the Chapter 4 DVD. This part of the course is about global security. And I think we'll see that security is more broadly defined than what it often is in our conversations. Scott, if you want to hit.
Paul, do you want to put the thing down?
That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? Thank you. Or I could throw Carol under the bus like I should have done with him. We'll go down there.
Is it on this DVD?
Yeah.
Chapter
Will it go down anymore?
No.
There's a little arrow that I have.
Not the bottom right?
Arrow.
Can you get over there?
I think you're already on the arrow, maybe.
There.
Yay!
Okay.
Little machine.
Honestly, being Arabic was never something that I thought about. I grew up in a very, very WASPy area, the mainline Philadelphia suburbs. that was my community. I was the same as everybody else. You know, I just got to go to Jordan in the summers. And, you know, I had different names for my grandmother and different names for my aunts and uncles, but I never thought that I was different. My mom made better food than everybody else, you know, than the other moms. And I watched the coverage. I watched the second thing go into the building.
Scott, would you turn that up just a minute?
Talked to my mom, who was a little bit hysterical. Went to the student vigil at Hendricks Chapel. When I got out of the chapel, checked my cell phone, because it had been ringing all day from family, and I had a lot of text messages and messages that basically told me to leave Syracuse and go back to wherever I came from, and thought it was a little bit ridiculous and kind of laughed about it with my friends. The next day, I went to class. We watched all the news coverage, and our professor told us to go around the room, comment on the news coverage, talk about anything that we needed to talk about. Got to be my turn. I said, you know, please don't say anything that you're going to regret. Please don't direct your anger towards people who don't deserve it. And I was sitting next to a very close friend of mine. We've been friends since opening weekend. He was very specific in his feelings that we needed to kill all the Palestinian children before they could get a chance to grow up and do this to other people. And I mean, I'm sitting next to this person who had been one of my closest friends at school. And all I could think about were my little cousins. I started crying. And the professor just kind of stood there, didn't say anything. That experience affected me more than the text messages that I had gotten, more than, you know, any other threat or snide comment, because this was somebody who was supposed to be my friend, because nobody else in the class, you know, told him, wait a second, you might be overreacting here, because the professor didn't say anything.
We've got just a couple minutes. Thoughts, comments, questions about what this young woman has to share? A Palestinian with relatives in Jordan.
A good friend of mine from grad school is Muslim with her whole family, and her son, she has 3 sons, sort of intermixed in age with my children, my daughters. And I remember when her youngest was born, his name is Noor. He's the same age as Caroline and Celia, and she, before Noor was born, she messaged our group of friends that we get together for happy hour, you know, a couple times a year. We talk on Facebook almost every day. She messaged us saying, I want to choose an Arabic name for my son, because that's my heritage, just like Caroline and Celia and Lena are my family's heritage. Honestly, I don't remember what Noor means. I think it means gift. But she said, am I saddling him with a life of fear for having the name Noor El-Mohui? And, you know, we didn't know what to say. Partly because we've never had to, like, no one's going to make fun of Caroline, Celia, and Lena, especially not in Minnesota, with a name like Lena. But I remember when her middle was born, his name is Hattie, and he was born right in, like, crux of the Spring Awakening in the Arab world. And Hattie had some sort of meaning of, you know, joy or awake, or she was so thrilled that her community was going through this. And I remember thinking how meaningful that name is. How cool is that this child can have this name of this great joy that happened when he was born, and that it just makes my heart hurt that not that she thinks, but that she knows that she's giving her child a great burden by giving him this name. And it's not that she thinks it'll happen, she knows it will, because it will. Because we are human and we discriminate. But I think about that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else before we call it a morning? Jim?
I think we don't know enough about other things, other people, other ways of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the unknown is one of the great fears in the world.
Absolutely.
You should study, read, learn these people, find out what they think, read their history, find out where they're coming from. They're not so far away from you.
You know, we have a PCA for my niece's husband, and he's from Cameroon, and like from the English-speaking part of Cameroon, and well, we're discussing Thanksgiving and that it is not his culture and so forth, but he did have Thanksgiving with us, and was happy to, join in with us. Just if you get to know.
I don't think that we should sell a child with a name that we know is going to cause that.
In this case, his name is Clyde.
Yeah. That's bad enough. But I don't think we know something like that. One case here now, where it means something to her. She knows that her child is going to have some setbacks or something with that name. I don't think you should do that.
Well, and I think she knows what she's getting into with the name, but she also knows that her faith is stronger, and that she is raising those boys in a faith and a community that will teach them resiliency when something like that happens, and will teach them the value of, yes, these things will happen, and our faith will get us through it.
Wow.
And I think we thinking about the names that she has chosen for her boys, so that when Lena sees someone getting teased because of their name or their faith, I want her to think, not, oh my gosh, why is this happening, but what can I do? How can I step in and say, Nor, you are my friend, you are important to me, I will stand up for you.
But on the other hand, you got something that could bother that kid the rest of his life, his young life. And, it's not worth it.
I think she has hope for the future.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's getting better every year that, we're more accepting.
Yeah.
I see that in our young people.
Yeah.
And so hopefully with each generation,
Yeah.
getting more accepting of all
Well, I think
cultures.
just our generation compared to our
Right.
grandparents,
Right.
Which is more in
Right.
line.
how things have opened up, and the next generation will be
Taking
better.
a kid with a
Right.
name really is going to cause some trouble.
This is where we'll pick it up next week. We have at least one more week after next week. One thing that I'd like you to be thinking about, that we'll talk about our last Sunday before the Christmas pageant. There are 2 Sundays in January, and 2 other Sundays where I'm teaching. The month of February has got other speakers. We have other speakers coming in. And my question for you on December 9th will be, do you want to finish this course that we're in now, in case we haven't? Or I have a schedule right now to watch a DVD that I got from PBS. It's called The Road to Calvary. And I thought, to lead us into Lent, that might be an appropriate thing. It's really very well done. I was very impressed when I saw it on TV. And then I also had 2 Sundays, one where I thought we would talk about the sermon. And what is a sermon? And what do you appreciate about a sermon? Or what do you not appreciate about, that we would talk about that. And then the Board of Education really pushed me to repeat my calling again. And so those are the 4 Sundays that I scheduled myself to be standing up. And so I'd like for us to talk about, how do you want to proceed in January and early February, or whatever, whenever those 4 Sundays are. Okay?